In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to draw perfect, precise trend lines in binary options. But before we get straight into the video, you're currently looking at feedback and profits made by my clients. Some of them are making $500 to $600 per day in my VIP binary option signals room. I provide the best binary option signals probably in the world. 5 signals per day, 25 signals per week, 100 signals per month. Profit is made every single day. This week alone, we got 20 out of 25 trades. I have a 75% win rate with a proven track record. We're making so much money right now and you're missing out. It's not too late to join. If you're interested in joining the VIP signals room, it will only cost you $10 per month, which you'll probably make back with just a few of my signals. The link to my Telegram bot is in the description below. Type/start and get started with your subscription today. If the signals don't work out for you, you can cancel your subscription at any time. Okay, so what is a trend line? Well, a trend line is a line drawn above pivot highs or under pivot lows to show the general direction of price. Trend lines can help you identify the long-term trend in the market and can also assist you with your entries and exits of positions. So here's an example on the Nasdaq on the 1 hour time frame. And when it comes to drawing a trend line in an uptrend, you need to identify a minimum of 2 to 3 pivot lows. Now, how do we know this is an uptrend? Well, the price is creating higher highs and higher lows. When it comes to plotting your trend line, you need to identify the beginning of the move. You need to identify the first pivot low. So what I'm going to do is delete this trend line so that we can plot it from scratch. Once you've identified the first pivot low, this is where you want to place the beginning of your trend line. Once you've plotted your trend line on the first pivot low, you want to identify the next pivot low. Now there might be 2, there might be 7 pivot lows. In this example, there's 3. And you want to stretch your trend line across the pivot lows identified. Now, there's 2 ways you can plot your trend lines. The first method is by plotting your trend line directly beneath the bodies of the candles. The second method to plot your trend lines is by plotting it directly beneath the lower wicks of the candles. Personally, I use a mixture of both. Ideally, I want the gradient of the trend line to be nice and smooth. Okay, so here we have an example on US 30 on the 1 hour time frame. When it comes to drawing a trend line in a downtrend, you need to identify a minimum of 2 to 3 pivot highs. So how do we know this is a downtrend? Well, the price is creating lower lows and lower highs. The same thing applies in a downtrend. When plotting your trend line, you need to identify the first pivot high at the beginning of the move. I'm going to go ahead and delete the trend line so that we can plot it from scratch. Once you've identified the first pivot high, this is where you can plot the beginning of your trend line. Once you've plotted your trend line on the first pivot high, you want to stretch it across the following pivot highs. In this example, there's 4. Now, like I said, you can plot the trend line in whichever way that you would like to. You can plot it above the bodies or the wicks of the candles, it doesn't matter. But it's very important that either the bodies or the wicks of the candles are touching the trend line. So here we have an example on the Japanese Nikkei 225 on the 4 hour time frame. And this is an example of consolidating market conditions. The market is clearly not in an uptrend nor in a downtrend, but rather in a consolidating phase. In these sort of market conditions, you want to identify both the pivot highs and lows. Once you've identified the first pivot high and the first pivot low, this is where you want to plot the beginning of your 2 trend lines. So what I'm going to do is delete these 2 trend lines here so that we can plot it from scratch. We're going to start off with the pivot highs. You want to identify the first pivot high, and this is where you want to plot the beginning of your trend line. Then you can stretch it across the following pivot highs. Okay, so now you want to plot another trend line at the first pivot low, stretching it across the following pivot lows. And again, you can plot your trend lines in whichever way that you would like to, on the bodies or the wicks, it doesn't matter. With trend lines, you can identify all sorts of chart patterns like wedges and channels, but I won't be getting into that. Those will be separate videos on its own. If you guys are looking for an extremely simple yet effective trendline strategy, I recently published a video on an insanely profitable break and retest strategy. So if you guys are interested, feel free to go and check that out. The link to the video is in the description below. Now look, you can draw trend lines on any time frame, but just keep in mind that the higher the time frame, the more accurate your trend lines will be because it shows you the long-term trend in the market. But anyway, I hope you guys learned something new today, and after watching this video, I'm sure you guys are going to be drawing the most precise, the most accurate trend lines on your charts. Well, I hope so. But most importantly, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, Go ahead and smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you in the next one.